Good morning, I am Jervis Masangkay and I'm going to present staffing in organizations. Staffing is defined as filling and keeping filled positions in the organizational structure. It also refers to the process of filling an open position by hiring new employees or by reassigning persons already employed. But before I discuss staffing in private sector, I would like to compare a difference between government employment and private sector. The primary difference between public sector jobs and private sector employment is that government employees in public sector positions focus on providing services to their community, while the private sector jobs are intended to produce a profit by selling products and services to people in the community. So let's proceed to the steps in recruitment and selection process for the private sector. For step 1, it is to recognize a need to hire. An employer recognizes a need to hire when an employee is fired, quits, or the company's growth require more employees. In some instances, the employer recognizes the need to hire before a position needs to be immediately filled. Typically, the public sector will have a human resources department that tracks hiring needs and will usually have qualified candidates on hand for openings. The private sector usually does not require such elaborate human resources department. For step 2, it is to place an ad. The employer can place an ad through an online job page, such as JobStreet, in print, or solicit potential candidates through peers. Typically, candidates will respond with resumes or applications. Referred candidates may be hired without submitting a resume or being interviewed. The public sector will use similar ad placement opportunities but will most likely have a database of potential candidates, which may eliminate ad placement. For the next step or the step 3 would be an interview. The employer will review submitted applications or resumes and call the qualified candidates for interview. During interview, the employer will not only further understand candidates' qualifications, but also evaluate personality traits. In some instances, a highly qualified candidate can be overlooked because of clashing personalities or a feeling from the interviewer. So the next step or the step 4 would be the selection process. The process of selecting a candidate will be based primarily on personality in the private sector. Since the private sector tends to have a more close-knit working environment, getting along with your coworkers can be of great importance. Most of the time, the person interviewing candidates will also be the person working directly with the new hire. Personality in the public sector is important as well, but the majority of the time, the person who interviews potential candidates will never work directly with the new hire, making skill set the biggest defining factor. During selection process, there are also times that the employer uses the job bidding. So job bidding is a process in which an employer will require applicants who are already employees of the company for a job position it has posted to compete with each other. They may be asked to bid for a salary or compensation rate for the job, and the employer will use the bids as basis in choosing those who will move forward in the recruitment process. In several instances, the winning bidder may be selected right there and then for the open position. After the steps mentioned above, we will proceed to the step 5 or the job offer. So, job offer is an invitation for a potential employee to work in a specific position for an employer. Job offer typically contains the details of the employment offer, including the salary, benefits, job responsibilities, and the reporting manager's name and title. The offer letter may also cover the expected work hours, the desired start date, and additional details that are important for the prospective employee to know. So now I am going to discuss the employee turnover. Employee turnover refers to the number or percentage of workers who leave an organization and are replaced by the new employees. Measuring employee turnover can be helpful to employers that want to maximize reasons for turnover or estimate the cost to hire for budget purposes. So as shown in the presentation, for example, if your company employs 100 employees and 15 employees are fired or quit, your turnover is 15%. Most organizations use more detailed calculations to determine what underlies turnover. There are two types of employee turnover. First, we have is the involuntary employee turnover, and then we have the voluntary employee turnover. First, I am going to discuss the involuntary employee turnover. Employee termination for poor job performance, absenteeism, or violation of workplace policies is called involuntary turnover. It is also referred to as termination, firing, or discharge. It is involuntary because it wasn't the employee's decision to leave the company. Layoffs could also be considered involuntary terminations, though layoff procedures usually are handled differently from termination. For the next type of employee turnover, we have the voluntary employee turnover. When an employee leaves the company of her own volition, it is called voluntary termination. Employees give a number of reasons for leaving their jobs. They may be accepting employment with another company, relocating to a new area, or dealing with a personal matter that makes it impossible to work. When an employee voluntarily terminates the employment relationship, she generally gives the employer verbal or written notice of intent to resign from her job. To conclude my presentation, we can say that staffing is very important in an organization. Staffing helps to improve the efficiency of performance of other management functions. It also improves the productivity of the employees, and it also contributes to the development of human capital. It builds the morale and motivation of the staff.